Hello, this is Tiffany. I'm back here for another Substack post. And today I wrote a piece titled, What About the Mom? And Thoughts About Abolishing the Family. So right now I am in my studio apartment. It is really quiet right now. It is very dark and gloomy outside. It's been raining. I actually haven't been home for a bit because I've been pet sitting, but I'm just glad to be sitting down to externalize some of my thoughts. There's so much here, and definitely feeling a lot of heaviness as we are witnessing the genocide in Palestine. So yeah, just taking a moment to acknowledge a piece of the complexity of being human under empire right now. All right, let's get into the Substack. I'm halfway into Abolish the Family by Sophia Lewis, and I have been digesting a few pages per day. Here's an excerpt from it on page 2. And this is a quote. I will hazard a definition of love. To love a person is to struggle for their autonomy as well as for their immersion of care. Insofar, such abundance is possible in a world choked by capital. If this is true, then restricting the numbers of mothers, of whatever gender, to whom a child has access on the basis that I am the real mother is not necessarily a form of love worthy of the name. Perchance, when you are very young, assuming you grew up in a nuclear household, you quietly notice the oppressiveness of the function assigned to whoever was the mother in your home. You sensed her loneliness. You felt a twinge of solidarity. In my experience, children often get better than most. When you love someone, it simply makes no sense to endorse a social technology that isolates them. End quote. Damn, that hit me. I remember watching my mother raising 2 young children in her 30s and drowning. At least from my point of view, because who knows how it aligns with her reality. From her stories, she was a bubbly and socially loved girl growing up in Hong Kong. She was popular at her schools, top student, got many scholarships. It led to working in law when she immigrated to the States. Got married, had kids in her 30s, which was late in that context, and boom. In the kitchen with a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old. Then, for the next 20 years, everything had to take in consideration of the kids. She stayed at home and homeschooled my sister and I from my first grade all the way through high school. Even though my sister and I did independent studies with public schools, we still were led by her and in a very, particular, a curated experience of education and being social. And included a photo of me on my first day of homeschool. The photos, I'm in front of a whiteboard at home, and it says Tiffany's homeschool begins September 5th, 1995. And there are photos of me and my sister in front of the board, and me and my dad, and my sister, my mom and dad, and my sister and me and my mom. And yeah, it's so sweet to think about that, but also, it's bittersweet because I know what her life would look like coming up, and I feel like I'm going to continue to hit on this in my Substack of what it's like to see photos and have memories of little me and be like, oh boy, you're going to experience some really, really dark things coming up. And even a photo of me being in first grade I already have. Back to the text. I felt her loss. I felt her loss of self. Motherhood didn't make up for it. It was traumatic for me to witness and to experience the consequences of it. She had friends in a religious community, thank goodness, but it didn't fill the whole of her existential loneliness. It was exhausting. and she was outside of her capacity every day. Any little thing could tip her over. Her body was a vibrating ball of anxiety and inflammation. I did not have a nervous system to find comfort in. And coming off the text, it's like, I'm in my 30s. Yeah, like when my mom was my age, she had 2 kids. And, I don't have kids, but I still am a vibrating ball of anxiety and inflammation. And it's just so interesting to kind of pivot from my perspective as a child growing up and then to my mom. And I included this photo of my mom carrying my little sister who's about, she's so chunky and cute. 1.5. And that means that I would be around 6, 5 or 6. To the text. And again, I'm angry about the Christian church. In so many ways, the community was shallow, shallow, shallow. I saw my friends' mothers in the same position as my mom. Actually, witnessing and hearing about the other families made me realize I had it better than most. At least my dad didn't also yell at me, and they weren't as strict as other parents. The trauma of the parents passed down to the children seemed like a cultural norm. I remember my parents talking to other parents about how rebellious the kids are and then using the Bible to justify punishment. Yeah, it was just normal. And if you're an immigrant, child of immigrants, you understand. My upbringing wasn't special. It wasn't out of the ordinary in how I was treated and how I was punished and in many ways controlled in the household that was traumatic in very many ways. I have a quote from Abolish the Family. In the 19th century, the U.S. and Canadian federal government's Indian policies typically demanded marriage as the way of dissolving tribal models of collective ownership that went along with gender non-binarism, non-monogamy, and /or matrilocal open marriage. They instituted private property and then concentrated it in the hands of, quote, heads of household, end quote, that is, husbands. It is in this sense that we can say that family abolition, as a project of resistance to and flight from bourgeois society, and a defense against colonization, was a horizon raised by the practices of stolen, captive, colonial displaced, and or formerly enslaved people who defied the institutions and modes of citizenship. The U.S. attempted to acculturate them to, namely, private property, secularized Christian monogamy, and the marriage-based private nuclear household. End quote. I remember so vividly being told my dad is the head of the household, and my mom is his support. But everyone knew my mom ran the family and made the decisions. She had to cosplay good wife while being utterly trapped to tending to all the household chores, her kids' education, driving us back and forth, planning every detail, and cooking. My dad did dishes and helped out for sure, but he embodied the passive man that just needs to get out of the way of the dramatic wife. And that's just another font for a patriarchal man. Okay, so skip this part if you haven't seen Adolescence, the show on Netflix. I just watched Adolescence, and wow. How it was shot, scripted, and performed was incredible. White people really get the opportunities of showing themselves as very nuanced and layered. If it was a black or brown family, there's no way that it would have been afforded this kind of complexity. I kept on thinking about the constant heartbreak of black families seeing their children either killed by pigs or locked up. The series was written and directed by men, and it's ironic because the film seems to be exploring misogyny while indulging in misogyny. By the end, we still don't know anything about the mom, sister, or any femmes in the story. The whole series begged the audience to sympathize and humanize the boy and the men, which was very easy to. When we know their stories, their fears, their trauma, it opens up so many more possibilities to empathize. So who gets that opportunity in this world? I think we all know. In the last episode, you could feel the loneliness of the nuclear family. The neighbors weren't actually caring to them. They were just noisy. The school teachers were just little cop assistants and didn't give a fuck about the students or their privacy. The worker at that English Home Depot just wanted to indicate that he was invested in the investigation like it was a hobby. Also, I think he totally was an incel. But yeah, that isn't community. Zooming into the mom, the beginning scene of the last episode. The dad was in a rage about his van being vandalized with spray paint, and so he fills up a bucket with water and soap. As he is chaotically lifting the bucket out of the sink, water spills everywhere, all over the sink and floor, and he tells his wife that he's sorry and he will clean it up later. After he comes back in from unsuccessfully scrubbing off the paint, the mom is mopping up the water and the dad pours the bucket of water in the sink, making a mess at the sink. The whole episode, you could feel the mom trying to keep it together for the family. She is externally calm and is desperately trying to show up for her husband and daughter in a loving way. After the dad's rage against those teens outside the Home Depot, she is almost laughing in her attempts to cope. All whilst her baby, her son, is locked up for killing a girl. Her baby, her son, will never be downstairs eating chocolate ice cream. Note to self, write about all the reasons why I'm glad I don't have kids and why I don't want kids. 87th reason. They could hurt and murder people. I'm out. So, what does liberatory imagination spark in me today? I learned about Alexandra Kollontai. I don't know if I'm saying that wrong, right or wrong. She is a Soviet family abolitionist, and she wrote this in her 1920 pamphlet, Communism and the Family. Quote, "Communist society takes care of every child and guarantees both him and his mother material and moral support. Society will feed, bring up, and educate the child. At the same time, those parents who desire to participate in the education of their children will be by no means be prevented from doing so. Communist society will take upon itself all the duties involved, but the joys of parenthood will not be taken away from those who are capable of appreciating them. Such are the plans of a communist society, and they can hardly be interpreted as a forcible destruction of the family and the forcible separation of child from mother." End quote. That is liberatory imagination that is founded on theory and principle. I want to imagine new and create structures of care. I need to grieve what has been, and what is. Children are so beautiful and pure. I want to contribute to a society where they actually are protected and cherished. My heart is heavy from the brutal murder of children, mothers, fathers, aunties, uncles, grandparents, teachers, and community members in Gaza. It is unfathomable. Praying for Palestine. Like right now, no food or aid or water has entered Palestine in more than 21 days. Like literally fuck Israel and fuck the US and fuck the empire. It's so maddening, and it's such a, like I'm always just in utter awe of the timeline that we're in, of what the empire is capable of and what it has always been capable of, which is such deep depravity and evil. And it's so exhausting to witness and to experience. And yeah, my heart is really grieving and praying for Palestine. Yeah, so that's it for my Substack today. Yeah, so many things to think about and to ponder, both from my experience as a child, but also in dreaming and building up a world in the future where I can be a community member that supports the larger family, chosen family, And yeah, so how to support me. You can subscribe to my Substack for free. Feel free to send me a recurring payment on a monthly payment on Venmo. You can buy me a cup of coffee. And also, I would love to read Revolutionary Mothering, edited by Pauline Gumbs, China Martins, and Mai Williams. And I would really, really love to add this to my Liberatory library. So if you want to send me the book or the funds, that would be beautiful. All right. Thank you, friends, for tuning in. More from me next time. Bye.